On September 23rd, 2009, a group of robbers used a stolen helicopter to pull off a heist in Sweden. $4 million, 32 minutes. The robbers had carefully planned the heist for months. The goal was to rob the G4S cash depot in the industrial area of Västbrygga, south of Stockholm, a place with high security that transported money to banks. It was filled with cameras and multiple secured entry points and required a lot of planning. On the night right before the heist, the robbers stole a Bell 206 Jet Ranger helicopter from a helicopter base located north of Stockholm. This helicopter was going to be their escape vehicle, something that never happened before in Swedish history. The National Criminal Investigation Department had been informed weeks earlier by the police in Serbia about a planned robbery with helicopter. A recruiting for a pilot had taken place in Belgrade. But once the heist took place, someone else would take on the role of the pilot. They had the suspects in helicopters under surveillance, and they kept their helicopters in a safer area. They believed it would happen on September 15th and at another location, but nothing happened. The alert was drawn back and the helicopters were returned to their ordinary bases. 1 week later, the robbers would make their move. The helicopter reaches the roof of the G4S building. The staff is counting money in the enumeration room that will then be sent down to the vault. They hear a noise from above. They stop the money-counting machines and can now hear the helicopter more clearly. The group leader leaves the room but comes back quickly and tells everyone to secure the money. They start locking up the money in steel cages. The helicopter has landed on the rooftop. 3 men get out of the helicopter and run toward the glass pyramid. They are covered with MC helmets and carry weapons. They also have 3 ladders with them. The helicopter hooves up and waits for the robbers to return. One robber hits the glass with a sledgehammer and manages to break it. They now bring the ladders to go down to the floor below. As they go down, they bring the other ladder with them. The police receive an alarm and rush to the cars. They hear on the radio about a helicopter above G4S with armored men on the roof. And here is another issue the police hear on the radio. The roads are filled with caltrops wired up to slow the police down to reach the building. To get through the unbreakable glass and door, the robbers use explosives and it detonates while they are back on the rooftop. The staff hears the explosion while securing the money, and so does the police, who have arrived. The group leader of the staff explains that the robbers are coming. Everyone understands what's waiting. 10 minutes have passed, and the robbers are still inside the building while the police are securing the area outside, and the helicopter is still flying. The police are in need of their own helicopters, but find out that they can't use them. A bomb case has been placed outside their helicopters. Someone has placed a blinking box at the police's helicopter base. The police used their helicopter earlier that night, and their base had been under surveillance. Once the helicopter was back at 2 a.m., someone took the chance to keep them stuck there. The robbers move calmly into the building and detonate a safety door. Fortunately, nobody gets hurt by the explosives. The staff runs from the explosion and hides, and the robbers enter the room where the money counting happens. The first member walks toward the gathering spot to see if there is any staff left in the room. But the staff has already left the room. The other member goes straight to the cages. They break the cages with circular saws and start to fill their bags with money. One of the robbers destroys the surveillance camera. The helicopter lands once again on the rooftop and the heavy bags are sent up. The robbers escaped with 39 million Swedish crowns. The police just stand there and watch it happen. A question that has been brought up is if they could shoot the helicopter down. But it was a risk they could not take. It had been decided long earlier that the police could not shoot down a helicopter because they would not be able to tell how fatal the consequences would be. The police also kept in mind that the pilot could be someone who helped the robbers against his will. The police follow the helicopter, but it gets away. The helicopter is found abandoned in a forest 20 kilometers north of Stockholm. The pilot had dropped off the other members at another location and then left the helicopter by himself. He walked a few kilometers to a McDonald's restaurant where he bought food to eat. The bomb that blocked the police from using their helicopters was revealed to be fake. The police were criticized for how they couldn't protect their own helicopters. The police admitted that they did not have the security they wished for and that they had tried to get a building permit for years. At this time, it was possible for anyone to retrieve drawings of the building, and G4S did not demand secrecy. However, it was a suspicion that the robbers had an insider. It could not be a coincidence that the robbers aimed for the money counting room and not the main vault, and that they did this at a certain time in the morning. 5 a.m. is the time most money is available in the least secure way. Only 2 of the cages are emptied. The robbers were on a tight and strictly planned schedule because the police could not see any phone signal between the pilot and the robbers. Instead, they knew that the helicopter would land to pick them up at a specific time. The police found a GPS in the helicopter and could retrieve deleted logs of the helicopter's landing spots. They could also find fingerprints on the GPS. Later that day, the first arrest will take place. Because the police already had suspects earlier, based on sources from the Serbian police, they knew what people they would look for at first. The police decided to look for trails like phone calls during these hours through mobile network operators, and they looked specifically at the cell towers close to the crime scenes. They could track that there had been phone calls before the heist, one from the location where the police had their helicopters. The police could also find trails of burned-up objects nearby, and they could find trails of DNA. 5 days after the robbery, 2 more men are arrested. One of them is known as the brain of the operation. The other person is the pilot. He was arrested at Arlanda Airport when he was heading to Spain. His DNA was found on the GPS. One person was arrested 4 months later in the Dominican Republic. The police found traces of his DNA at the crime scene. There were multiple blood stains in the building. The man might have cut himself by the destroyed glass. He was also known by the police for an earlier crime, a heist at the National Museum in Sweden in the year 2000. There was a big conflict between the Stockholm police and the National Criminal Investigation Department about who was in charge of the case. The National Criminal Investigation Department gave false information to the Stockholm police on purpose. The information was about the robbers trying to escape to Asia, and that flight tickets had been found. Just 1 day later, this information leaked to the media. When the leaks inside the police were confirmed, the National Criminal Investigation Department decided to arrest the man with a different approach. They closed his passport instead and informed the police in the Dominican Republic about it, so they sent him back to Sweden on that basis. He admitted he was in the building, but he denied aggravated robbery. He was told that no people would be inside when they would enter, but the cameras showed clearly that he was first to walk in and point his weapon. 7 people were sentenced, but 3 were free of charge. But there is a belief that more people were involved, perhaps 20 people. This case became big international, and a lot of discussions have been made about the police's efforts, why it took so many hours for them to enter the building and evacuate the people who worked inside. 2024 was a Netflix series made about the show. This heist has been sometimes glorified as similar to a Hollywood movie due to its prestige planning and complexity. But what was a glorified event in some people's eyes was a nightmare for others. As the robbery was happening, several people thought the building would collapse. Some were scared that the robbers would use their weapons. One woman mentioned that she saw others crying. Some took the time to look at pictures of their children. One woman was pregnant and about to pass out. She feared that she would have a miscarriage. It took 3 hours to be evacuated after the robbery and be sent on a bus to the police station for interrogation. It was easy for some people to assume that the staff was not traumatized because they managed to leave the room before the robbers entered. But for some, it took a lot of time to get through. Some experienced fear of going to work, and therapy was also needed. In the end, it was an impressive heist, but it was still a crime where people got caught, and it was a trauma for the innocent people involved.